learning more about the brain. It's a topic that's pretty important when it comes to AP psychology and also neuroscience. Specifically, we'll be learning about the parts of the brain and their function. Let's start off with the regions of the brain. There is the frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, and occipital lobe. In this case, the frontal lobe is involved with movement and decision making. The parietal lobe is involved with touch, and the temporal lobe is involved with audition, or which is otherwise known as hearing. And the occipital lobe is involved with sight. An easy way to remember this is the occipital lobe is at the very far end. If you were imagining the eyes are here, the eyes and the occipital lobe are on opposite ends. You would see the ears right here. So the temporal lobe has to refer to hearing because it's right near the ears. And the frontal lobe is well in the front. You could also say the frontal lobe is involved with higher decision making, as it has the prefrontal cortex, which we'll be talking about later. So within the brain, there's obviously a lot of important cortexes in specific areas within it. In this case, a lot of the more important ones that are addressed are the motor cortex, sensory cortex, Wernicke's area, and Broca's area. The sensory cortex processes and interprets information from all five senses. So all five senses send information to the sensory cortex. All five senses end up providing information to the cortex, which interprets it and says specific actions. Within it has a somatosensory cortex, which deals with somatic sensation. This involves the skin and touch, pain. If you're touching something hot, it will cause pain, right? That's also referred to as nociception, temperature, and proprioception. Proprioception is the awareness of the body's position in space. That would mean if the proprioception would be if you knew your hand was resting on the table. The motor cortex controls voluntary movement. So let's say if you think about wanting to move your arm, well, the motor cortex is the one that actually does it for you. Broca's area is involved with language production, which means Broca's areas helps you say what you want to say, like I'm talking right now. Wernicke's area is language comprehension. It's how you understand language. That's why people without these areas or with these areas not properly functioning often have problems with language. In Broca's, it would be talking or expressing or talking in language that can be understood properly by others. In Wernicke's area, it would be understanding languages that you hear. The parts of the brain. Well, at a high-level view, ignoring the frontal lobes, this is another view where you have the entire brain, which is referred to as the cerebrum, the cerebellum, which is if you can think of it as a small mini brain, and the brainstem, which is the way the brain meets the spinal cord. The cerebrum is made up of gray and white matter. That gray matter in specific is a cerebral cortex. What the cerebrum does is controls movement, temperature regulation, higher functions in the five senses, or basically you could think of it as I guess you could basically think of it as containing the four lobes, which is pretty obvious here with the occipital, parietal, temporal, and frontal lobe here. The cerebral cortex, as everyone knows, is divided into two hemispheres, the left and the right. The left hemisphere controls the right side of the body, and the right hemisphere controls the left side of the body. It's connected through the corpus callosum, which is basically a system of nerves in between the two hemispheres. That's what often the corpus callosum is cut in order to help treat epilepsy and other disorders. The cerebral cortex also has these folds and which are referred to as sulci and gyri. The cerebellum also has two hemispheres. In this case, it has an inner hemisphere, which is focusing on communicating with the cerebral cortex, and the outer hemisphere, which contains neurons. It specifically controls voluntary muscle movement, posture, balance, and equilibrium or balance. You could think of it as a princess, as princesses need to have posture, or any form of royalty, I guess, because they need to have good posture. They need to be balanced, which is you can associate with them balancing books on their head and other things. It's also essential to the formation of procedural memories. Procedural memories refer to memories of repetitive things, like remembering how to tie your shoes, because that's a task you do often and involves a procedure. The brainstem. We skipped this over before because it has a lot of parts. It basically connects what here is the cerebrum to the spinal cord or the rest of the body. It has the midbrain. It contains the midbrain, which is not pictured here, pons, the reticular formation, and the medulla. The midbrain contains neurons and is part of the basal ganglia, which is focused on movement and coordination. The pons here is involved in controlling sleep and arousal. The reticular formation is sleep and wake cycle. That means if either your pons or reticular formation get damaged, it means you can fall in a coma. The medulla controls the survival and reflex functions, heart rate and breathing. It's incredibly important to survival. It's also where the brain meets the spinal cord. The limbic system has the hippocampus, which is right here, the pituitary gland here, and the amygdala, among other parts. The hippocampus in specific is involved in memory formation. It helps store memories for a long-term basis from short-term memory. It deals with episodic memories, which are memories of really important, I guess you could say life-changing moments, like the day you found out you got into your favorite college. And then neurogenesis. Neurogenesis refers to the brain's ability to, I guess, it's a part of neuroplasticity, and neurogenesis is how new neurons are formed in the brain. The pituitary gland is the master gland. It controls all the other glands in the body, like the adrenal gland and so on. It specifically also releases growth hormones and hormones related to sexual reproduction. The amygdala controls emotions and helps produce emotional memories, which are also referred to as flashbulb memory. It helps flashbulb memories. Flashbulb memories are again those really important. These are of episodic memories, and flashbulb memories of really important moments. Emotional memory, it's basically associating the emotions here with the memories you have. A really helpful way to remember hippocampus is that you'll never forget a hippo roaming around your campus. After all, that's not something you see every day, do you? The limbic system also contains the hypothalamus and the prefrontal cortex right here. The hypothalamus actually controls the pituitary gland and is often referred to as and thereby controlling the pituitary gland, it's in charge of the endocrine system, which is basically the system of glands that secrete hormones. And by that, it regulates homeostasis. Homeostasis refers to your body's natural state of balance, and how to, let's say, homeostasis would be, the body would be trying to regulate homeostasis. Like if it's too hot outside, well, you sweat. Sweat helps cool you down, and so on. In specific, it controls a lot of things using hormones. The big ones are temperature, hunger, and satiation. So it can induce hunger, or it can make you feel full. Fight or flight, it can make you run towards a fight or run away from it. and mating hormones, along with other things. The prefrontal cortex, this is a big part of the frontal lobe. It's involved in higher functions, so thinking, problem solving, identity, and such. The thalamus right here, which is close to the hypothalamus, is basically, you can, I've always remembered it as a sensory switchboard. It directs information from the senses to the target part of the brain. It deals with only 4 of the senses: sight, touch, taste, and hearing. It does not deal with olfaction or smell. Do you know some of the parts of the brain now? I hope you do after this. And thank you for watching this video. If you wanted to learn more about this or review some of this content, there's a bunch of AP psychology resources related to the brain and related systems. I recommend ones from Fiveable. And if you want to quiz yourself on this, brain anatomy and function quizzes are pretty helpful. They may be, since you don't know all the parts of the brain, they may be a little difficult. I recommend the ones from Britannica. And thank you so much.